into the abyss. The darkness closes in. You can feel its icy breath on your skin. It whispers your name. Your heart pounds in your chest. A scream gets stuck in your throat. But you can't escape. You're trapped, immersed in a world of terror. This isn't a movie, this isn't a book, this is virtual reality horror. And it's happening to you. Virtual reality has changed the way we experience entertainment, but its impact is strongest and most intense in the world of horror. VR horror isn't just about watching a scary movie. It's about stepping into your nightmares. It's about feeling the terror in your bones. VR horror blurs the lines between reality and fantasy. It tricks your senses, immerses you in a world of fear so real, so immediate that your instincts take over. You forget you're wearing a headset. You forget you're in your living room. You are there, in the heart of the darkness, fighting for survival. This is the power of VR horror. It's a real psychological experience that pushes us to the edge of our comfort zones. It forces us to face our deepest fears, to experience them in a way that was never possible before. And it's changing the way we think about horror, about entertainment, and about what reality really is. The fabric of fear. The technology behind VR horror is surprisingly simple. A headset with a screen for each eye creates a 3D image. Headphones provide immersive sound. Sensors track your movements, allowing you to interact with the virtual world. But the real magic is in the software, in the carefully crafted digital environments and the terrifying creatures that live in them. Developers use advanced graphics and sound design to create a sense of realism that traditional media can't match. They understand the psychology of fear, the subtle cues that trigger our instincts. The creaking door, the flickering lights, the distant scream. These are the things that build suspense, that create a real sense of dread. But VR horror goes beyond just jump scares and gore. It's about creating a sense of presence, of actually being in a terrifying world. It's about the feeling of the cold, damp air on your skin, the smell of decay, the sound of your own heartbeat in your ears. It's about the way your body reacts, the adrenaline rush, the fight or flight response that kicks in when you're faced with a terrifying situation. In VR horror, you are not just watching, you are a participant. You are in the game, fighting for your life, making choices that have real consequences. This level of immersion creates an emotional and psychological impact that is much stronger than anything you can experience in a movie theater or with a book. Trapped in terror. Imagine a haunted house. You walk through its dark corridors, each room revealing a new horror. In traditional media, you are a spectator watching the events unfold from a safe distance. But in VR, you are in the house. You can feel the dust on your fingertips, the chill in the air. You can hear the whispers in the walls, the floorboards creaking under your feet. Now imagine something reaching out from the shadows, its cold, clammy hand grabbing your arm. Your heart races, your breath gets stuck in your throat, your instincts scream at you to run. This is the power of VR horror. It's not just about seeing, it's about feeling. It's about actually being in the experience, about having your body react instinctively to the threats around you. VR horror triggers a primal fear response, a deep instinct that is hardwired into our brains. It bypasses the rational mind and taps into the raw emotions that lie beneath the surface. This is why VR horror is so effective. It doesn't just scare us, it terrifies us on a fundamental biological level. The emotional impact of VR horror can be profound. It can stay with you long after you've taken off the headset, haunting your dreams, making you jump at shadows. It can challenge your sense of self, your perception of reality. It can make you question what is real and what is not. The mind's eye. Our minds are powerful instruments. They can conjure up vivid images, create entire worlds within our own heads. But the mind is also susceptible to suggestion, to manipulation. VR horror exploits this vulnerability, using technology to create experiences that feel real, even when we know they are not. The psychological impact of VR horror can be explained by the concept of immersion. Immersion is the feeling of actually being in a virtual environment, of being surrounded by the sights, sounds, and sensations of that world. The more immersive the experience, the more real it feels, and the more our minds accept it as reality. In VR horror, immersion is achieved through a combination of sensory stimulation and interactivity. The headset blocks out the real world, replacing it with a digital environment. The headphones create a 360-degree soundscape, putting you in the middle of the action. And the hand controllers allow you to interact with the virtual world, to pick up objects, open doors, and even fight back against the creatures that threaten you. This level of interactivity creates a sense of agency, of control over the virtual environment. But it also creates a sense of responsibility. When you are in control, you are also responsible for what happens because of your actions. This can make VR horror experiences even more intense as you are forced to think about the right and wrong of your choices. VR horror is not just a new form of entertainment, it's a new reality. It's a reality where the lines between the virtual and the real are blurred, where our senses are tricked and our minds are manipulated. This new reality has the potential to change the way we think about ourselves, about the world around us, and about fear itself. For some, VR horror is a way to escape, a way to experience thrills and chills without any real danger. It's a safe space to confront our fears, to test our limits, and to come out of the experience feeling excited and alive. But for others, VR horror is a source of anxiety, even trauma. The intensity of the experience can be too much, triggering panic attacks, nightmares, and even symptoms similar to PTSD. The psychological effects of VR horror are still being studied, but it's clear that this technology can affect us on a deep emotional level. It can change our perceptions, our memories, and even our sense of self. It can make us question what is real, what is imagined, and what lies in the shadowy space between the two. VR horror is a powerful tool that can be used for both good and bad. It can be used to create empathy, to help us understand what others are going through. It can be used to train first responders, to get them ready for real-life emergencies. But it can also be used to manipulate, to take advantage of our fears, and to cause psychological harm. The human mind is a fragile thing. It can be easily swayed by suggestion, by the power of belief. This is what makes VR horror so effective. It plays on our innate fears, our primal instincts, to create experiences that feel real, even when we know they are not. The concept of the ghost in the machine refers to the idea that there is something more to consciousness than just the physical brain. It suggests that there is a soul, a spirit, that lives in our bodies and creates our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. VR horror taps into this concept by creating virtual worlds that feel so real, so immersive, that we begin to wonder if there is something more to them than just lines of code and pixels on a screen. We start to feel a presence, a sentience, in the virtual characters and creatures we encounter. We react to them as if they were real, experiencing fear, empathy, and even love. This is the power of VR horror. It blurs the lines between the real and the virtual, challenging our understanding of consciousness and what reality really is. As VR technology continues to evolve, we can expect these experiences to become even more immersive, even more convincing. The line between the virtual and the real will become increasingly blurred, and we will be forced to face the implications of this new reality. Fear is a powerful motivator. It can drive us to great lengths, to acts of both heroism and cowardice. In VR horror, fear can be both exhilarating and debilitating. It can push us to our limits, forcing us to face our deepest fears, but it can also leave us feeling vulnerable, exposed, and even traumatized. The psychological cost of VR horror is a complex issue. For some, the experience can be cathartic, a way to confront and overcome their fears. But for others, it can be deeply unsettling, triggering anxiety, nightmares, and even flashbacks. The immersive nature of VR horror can make it hard to separate the virtual experience from reality, leading to a blurring of the lines between the two. This blurring of lines can have real-world consequences. People who are highly susceptible to the effects of VR horror may find themselves experiencing anxiety and fear in everyday situations. They may become hypervigilant, constantly looking around for potential threats. They may avoid certain places or activities that trigger memories of the virtual experience. The long-term psychological effects of VR horror are still being studied, but it's clear that this technology can affect us on a deep, emotional level. It's important to be aware of the potential risks involved and to approach VR horror with caution, especially if you are prone to anxiety or have a history of trauma. The future of VR horror is both exciting and daunting. As technology continues to evolve, we can expect VR horror experiences to become even more immersive, more realistic, and more terrifying. Advances in graphics, sound design, and haptic feedback will create virtual worlds that are impossible to tell apart from reality, blurring the lines between the virtual and the real even further. We can expect to see VR horror experiences that are tailored to our individual fears and phobias, using artificial intelligence to create personalized nightmares that exploit our deepest vulnerabilities. These experiences will be so real, so visceral, that they will challenge our very understanding of what it means to be human. But the future of VR horror is not just about technological advancements, it's also about the evolution of storytelling, about finding new and innovative ways to use VR technology to create truly terrifying and unforgettable experiences. VR horror has the potential to go beyond the limitations of traditional media, to create entirely new genres of horror that explore the darkest parts of the human psyche. VR horror is still in its early stages, but it's clear that this technology can revolutionize the way we experience fear and entertainment. It's a powerful tool that can be used to create experiences that are both exhilarating and terrifying, both enlightening and disturbing. VR horror is not just about entertainment. It can be used in a variety of fields, from education and training to therapy and rehabilitation. The immersive nature of VR makes it a perfect tool for creating realistic simulations that can be used to train first responders, military personnel, and medical professionals. VR horror can be used to create simulations of real-world emergencies, such as fires, earthquakes, and terrorist attacks. These simulations can help trainees develop the skills and experience they need to respond well in high-pressure situations. VR horror can also be used in therapy to help people overcome their fears and phobias. By exposing patients to their fears in a safe and controlled environment, VR therapy can help them to become less sensitive to their triggers and to develop coping mechanisms. The use of VR horror in therapy is still in its early stages, but early results are promising. VR horror can be a powerful tool for helping people to overcome their fears and to lead fuller, more productive lives. VR horror is a versatile technology with a wide range of potential applications. As the technology continues to evolve, we can expect to see even more innovative and impactful uses for VR horror in a variety of fields. The future of VR horror is full of possibilities, both exciting and unsettling. As technology advances, the lines between reality and virtuality will continue to blur, leading to experiences that are even more immersive and impactful. We can expect to see VR horror experiences that are tailored to our individual fears, phobias, and desires, creating personalized nightmares that take advantage of our deepest vulnerabilities. The ethical implications of this technology are important. How do we make sure that VR horror is used responsibly, that it does not cause harm or traumatize users? How do we prevent the creation of experiences that are so real, so visceral, that they blur the line between fantasy and reality to a dangerous degree? These are questions that we must deal with as VR horror technology continues to evolve. It can be used for good or bad in a big way. VR horror can entertain, educate, and heal, but it can also manipulate, exploit, and harm. The future of VR horror is in our hands. It is up to us to make sure that this powerful technology is used responsibly and ethically, to create experiences that are both thrilling and enlightening without crossing the line into the realm of true horror.